of a Sigma male never announces who he is. He doesn't need to. His presence speaks in ways most people never catch on the first glance. While others perform, compete, or talk their way into recognition, the Sigma exposes himself through subtle behaviors, quiet signals that only the perceptive notice. These signals are not loud, not dramatic, not even intentional, but once you learn to recognize them, you can't unsee them. And the truth is, these signs separate him from every other personality type long before he ever says a word. Most people misinterpret the Sigma because he doesn't move like the crowd, doesn't follow social cues, and doesn't reveal what he's thinking. But what if the very traits people overlook are the signs that define his identity? What if the real power of the Sigma is hidden in the silence everyone underestimates? Before we start, I want to know something. Have you ever felt like you stand out quietly? Not because you tried, but because you couldn't be anything else? Comment the word silent if you relate, and subscribe to Ultrawise for more deep psychological breakdowns like this, so you never miss the truths most people never see. He watches the room before he enters it. His presence is deliberate, never accidental. Sigma male doesn't walk into a room blindly, carried by impulse or noise. His entrance begins long before his footsteps cross the threshold. He pauses, sometimes for a breath, sometimes for a full moment, not out of hesitation, but out of intention. In that small slice of silence, he scans the environment with a precision most people never develop. He studies body language, registers tension, senses dynamics, and reads the emotional temperature of the space. While others rush in to be seen, he observes quietly to understand what he is walking into. This is not paranoia, it is strategic awareness born from years of realizing that peace depends on foresight. A Sigma knows that the room you enter has the power to influence your energy, your decisions, and your direction. So he enters only when he fully grasps what surrounds him. His presence, once he steps inside, is impossible to ignore, not because he demands attention, but because he carries a controlled stillness that disrupts the usual social rhythm. People feel him before they consciously notice him. They sense the deliberate way he positions himself, the way he chooses his angle, his distance, his level of engagement. Everything he does is intentional, built from the information he gathered in those silent seconds before entering. He is the opposite of chaotic energy. Nothing about him is rushed. Nothing about him is accidental. This is why people often describe Sigma males as mysterious. The truth is more accurate. They are calculated. And calculation is always misread by those who move through life without self-awareness. In that subtle pre-distress observation, he protects his emotional boundaries and avoids unnecessary entanglements. He learns who seeks attention, who drains energy, who dominates, who listens, who watches. From the doorway, he sees alliances forming, insecurities leaking, egos competing, and masks slipping. While others step into the room trying to fit, he steps in, understanding exactly how to stay sovereign. This ability makes him unpredictable to others, because they cannot influence someone who already mapped the social terrain before engaging. His deliberate presence becomes a shield, a quiet armor that keeps him aligned with himself rather than absorbed by the environment. By the time he finally enters, the Sigma is already 10 steps ahead mentally. People think he's simply quiet. They mistake his calm entrance for indifference. But the truth is simple. He entered the room only once he understood it, and he will leave long before it ever has the power to shape him. His silence isn't shyness, it's calculation and awareness. Most people misunderstand a Sigma's quiet nature. They assume silence means insecurity, discomfort, or lack of confidence. But what they fail to realize is that his silence is not emptiness, it is strategy. A Sigma male uses silence the way a skilled observer uses a vantage point, not to hide, but to see more. In every moment he stays quiet, he's absorbing the unspoken dynamics of the room, picking up on the subtle cues others overlook. Tension in a jawline, a shift in tone, a forced smile, an energy shift when certain names are mentioned. His silence becomes a filter that separates truth from performance. While others rush in to speak, to fill space, to assert themselves, he's reading the entire emotional landscape unnoticed. That silence is not passive, it's active awareness. When he chooses not to speak, it's because speaking too soon gives away positioning. It exposes where you stand, how you feel, what you want. A Sigma refuses to hand out that kind of leverage. His silence gives him time to assess motives, measure intentions, and understand the unspoken rules at play. He's not just listening to words, he's studying the behavior wrapped around them. In this quiet mode, he sees patterns forming long before others recognize they exist. He notices alliances forming in the shadows, flattery used as manipulation, dominance masked as leadership. People who try to size him up quickly find themselves disarmed because silence reveals more about them than it hides about him. This silence isn't timid or uncertain, it's controlled. A Sigma understands that the loudest person in the room is usually the most exposed, and the quietest is often the most informed. His awareness sharpens. With every moment he chooses presence over noise. He watches how people interact when they think no one is analyzing them. He notices contradictions between someone's words and their action. He sees insecurity disguised as arrogance. And the more he observes, the more he understands exactly how to navigate without being pulled into the emotional chaos around him. His silence is a boundary, a space he protects fiercely. It keeps him from reacting impulsively, from being manipulated, from wasting energy on superficial conversations. It shields his intentions and reveals the intentions of everyone else. People often mistake it as distance, but they sense something deeper underneath. A quiet power, a self-position, a sense that he knows far more than he chooses to say. Because for a Sigma male, silence is never a retreat. It is where his awareness sharpens, his intuition strengthens, and his advantage begins. He notices micro behaviors in people long before they notice him. A Sigma male doesn't learn people through their words. He learns them through their smallest inconsistencies. Before anyone even realizes he's paying attention, he has already collected a library of micro behaviors that reveal their true nature. He sees the way someone's eyes shift when they lie, the half-second delay before they answer a question that makes them uncomfortable, the tightening of a jaw when their ego is triggered, the subtle distancing of their body when their interest fades. These details slip past most people because they're too busy talking, reacting, or trying to be noticed. But the Sigma? He sits in the background, quiet but fully awake, letting the room reveal itself to him, piece by piece. He watches how people treat those they think are unimportant. He notices how their tone changes depending on who they're speaking to. He picks up on who interrupts others and who shrinks when confronted. These tiny behaviors, barely visible, rarely acknowledged, tell him everything he needs to know about someone's character. A single glance toward the exit when responsibility appears, a forced laugh that doesn't match the eyes, a habit of scanning the room for better company. These microshifts paint a clearer picture than any confession ever could. By the time someone tries to impress him, manipulate him, or win him over, he already understands their blueprint. What makes this ability so powerful is how quietly he uses it. He doesn't expose what he sees. He doesn't confront. He doesn't alert people to his awareness. Instead, he stores that information, letting it guide how close or distant he chooses to be. People think they are getting to know him, but in reality, he's the one mapping them. Studying their emotional triggers, their tells, their insecurities, and their ambition. And because he rarely reacts or responds immediately, people reveal even more to fill the silence they don't understand. This skill didn't come from arrogance. It came from survival, from years of watching the world operate through masks and performances. The Sigma learned to pay attention because attention protects him. It keeps him from wasting energy on the wrong people, and it helps him identify sincerity in a world full of surface-level interactions. Long before someone notices him, he has already decided what role, if any, they will play in his life. And because his awareness is silent, precise, and almost impossible to detect, people never realize how clearly he saw them from the moment they arrive. He moves with calm confidence that doesn't need validation. A Sigma male's confidence is unlike the loud, performative bravado many people mistake for strength. His confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand recognition. Instead, it settles over him like a quiet gravity, steady, self-contained, and unshakable. He moves through the world with a calm certainty that comes from knowing who he is, without needing anyone to confirm it. This calmness is what makes people take a second look. While others try to earn attention through noise, exaggeration, or competition, the Sigma walks his path with a silent assurance that needs no audience. Every step he takes is grounded in intention, not approval. This calm confidence isn't built on ego. It comes from self-trust, from having relied on himself during moments when no one else could be counted on. It comes from surviving setbacks privately, rebuilding quietly, and learning to rise without applause. He doesn't need validation because he has already tested himself in ways the world will never see. And that's the difference. Some people chase confidence externally, but a Sigma forges it internally. His demeanor is steady because he doesn't tie his worth to outcomes, opinions, or social hierarchies. He knows what matters to him, and he knows what doesn't. And this clarity frees him from the emotional turbulence that controls most people. When he moves, he doesn't rush. He doesn't chase. He doesn't over-explain or justify his decisions. His calmness is a form of discipline, the ability to choose presence over panic, strategy over impulse. Even in conflict, he remains composed. Not because he's indifferent, but because he refuses to let someone else's chaos dictate his state of mind. This composure unsettles people who rely on emotional reactions to gain control. They expect him to argue, defend, or spiral, but instead he stays rooted, centered, unmoved. That calmness becomes a mirror that exposes the instability of everyone around him. People respect him without understanding why. They feel the weight of his presence even when he says nothing. They sense that he is not trying to prove anything, and that absence of effort becomes its own form of authority. A Sigma's confidence is powerful precisely because it is quiet. It cannot be inflated by praise or deflated by criticism. It doesn't fluctuate with external validation. It exists because he built it brick by brick, moment by moment, far away from the noise of the world. And that is why he becomes someone others can't ignore, even though he never once asked to be seen. He doesn't mirror social energy. He maintains his own frequency. A Sigma male moves through social environments as if he's tuned to a completely different bandwidth. While most people unconsciously absorb the emotions, attitudes, and tones of those around them, he remains anchored in his own internal rhythm. He doesn't rise because others rise, and he doesn't fall because others fall. His emotional state is not a reaction to the room. It is a decision he makes before he enters it. This is why his presence feels so distinct. People instinctively sense that he isn't operating on their frequency, and that difference creates both intrigue and uncertainty. He stands out, not because he tries to, but because he refuses to be pulled into the emotional currents that guide everyone else. This ability to hold his own frequency comes from years of self-observation and inner discipline. A Sigma learns early that mirroring others dilutes his authenticity. He watches how people perform socially, shifting tone, exaggerating interest, inflating confidence, and he recognizes the hidden insecurity beneath it. Instead of copying these patterns, he detaches from them. He sees social dynamics as signals, not commands, and he chooses which ones to answer and which ones to ignore. When conversations escalate, he remains steady. When environments become chaotic, he becomes quieter, more deliberate, more focused. His energy becomes the anchor point, the calm in the center of interactions that would otherwise pull most people off their emotional balance. His frequency is shaped by clarity, not noise. While others react instinctively to approval, disapproval, tension, or attention, he processes everything with a filter of intention. He asks himself, does this matter? Does this require my energy? Does this align with who I am? If the answer is no, he remains unmoved. He doesn't match enthusiasm. He doesn't feel. Nor does he adopt negativity he doesn't accept. People who thrive on emotional responses find him unreadable. Those who manipulate through social pressure find him unreachable. And those who rely on crowd dynamics discover that he does not follow. He leads himself. Maintaining his own frequency makes him magnetic because it communicates something rare: emotional sovereignty. People respect a man who cannot be swayed by trends, moods, or the shifting approval of the group. His consistency creates gravity. Others stabilize when he is near, even if they don't understand why. A Sigma male's energy becomes a silent statement that he is governed by his identity, not by the world around him. And in a society built on imitation and reaction, that level of self-possession becomes impossible to overlook. He reveals nothing emotionally, which makes people more curious about him. A Sigma male's emotional silence is not coldness. It is intentional discipline. While others broadcast their feelings through tone, expression, and impulsive reactions, he maintains a calm interior space that no one can easily access. This creates an immediate psychological effect. People feel the presence of emotion without ever being allowed to see it. They sense depth but cannot measure it, strength but cannot predict it. This emotional opacity turns him into a mystery in a world where most people overshare their inner states without hesitation. His restraint forces others to lean in closer, trying to decode the signals he never actually reveals. His emotional privacy is shaped by experience. He has learned that the moment he exposes how he feels, someone will try to use it to influence him, guilt him, or bend him. So he keeps his emotions guarded not because he lacks them, but because he understands their value. In conversations, he listens more than he speaks. In conflict, he watches before he reacts. In relationships, he chooses truth over performance. This quiet emotional sovereignty unsettles those who expect transparency or vulnerability on command. They want to read him, but he gives them nothing. They want to provoke him, but he stays unmoved. The more silent he becomes internally, the louder his presence feels externally. People project onto him because he refuses to define himself for them. Some imagine he is cold. Others think he is calculating, and many assume he is wiser than he lets on. In reality, he simply refuses to let emotions become currency. When you can't decode a man's emotional state, you cannot predict his next move. And that unpredictability commands both respect and caution. His stillness becomes a mirror, reflecting others back to themselves. They see their own insecurities, expectations, and desires more clearly than they see him. And ironically, this quiet detachment makes him more compelling than any performance of emotion ever could. This emotional opacity is not a wall, it's a boundary. It protects his inner world from noise, manipulation, and distraction. Only those who earn his trust are allowed past that barrier. And even then, he reveals himself slowly, deliberately, and selectively. The world never sees the full depth of who he is, only glimpses. That scarcity is what makes people chase his truth. The less he reveals, the more they want to know. The quieter he becomes, the more powerful his presence grows. When a Sigma male moves through the world carrying silence, intention, and emotional control, people feel it, even if they can't explain it. What they call mystery is really mastery. The ability to navigate life without bending to noise, pressure, or expectation. And that's why these 6 signals reveal him instantly to anyone who pays attention. He doesn't announce who he is. He doesn't compete for recognition. His identity is something you sense before you ever hear him speak. Now, I want to hear from you. Did you recognize even one of these signs in yourself? Drop the word signal in the comments so I know you watched all the way to the end and resonate with this path. And if you want more deep psychology, more silent power breakdowns, and more insight into the Sigma mindset, subscribe to UltraWise and stay ahead of the crowd that still tries to understand what you already live.